Here's the thing about The Shining. Stanley Kubrick built a hotel that cannot physically exist. The rooms don't connect the way they should. Hallways lead nowhere, and there's a window in a manager's office that looks out onto the mountains from a room that is completely surrounded by other rooms. He did all of this on purpose. And that's before you even get to the details about Jack's clothes, because if you track what he's wearing from the very first scene to the very last, there's something deeply wrong that almost nobody ever notices. I'm Sam, and I do weekly deep dives into movies you love. I found 25 hidden details in The Shining that will completely change how you see this film. Let's get into it. Number 1. The Overlook Hotel's layout is physically impossible, and that was entirely deliberate. Kubrick's executive producer, Jan Harlan, confirmed in an interview that the sets were deliberately built to be offbeat and off the track, so that the ballroom would never actually fit inside. There are windows in rooms that back up against other rooms with no exterior wall, hallways that lead nowhere. When Wendy and Danny are taken on a tour of the hotel kitchen, they enter the freezer from one corridor and exit into a completely different corridor that wasn't there before. The building itself is wrong, and Kubrick wanted you to feel it without being able to identify why. Number 2. The most visually obvious version of this impossible architecture is in Mr. Ullman's office. When Jack arrives for his interview, there is a large window behind Ullman's desk with a sweeping view of the mountains outside. Now pay attention later in the film when Wendy walks past the back of that same office. She is walking through an interior corridor. There is no exterior wall behind Ullman's office. That window cannot exist. It is looking out onto nothing. Kubrick built it in, kept it in, and said nothing about it. It's visible in both scenes if you freeze frame and compare the spatial layout. Number 3. Track Jack's clothing across the entire film. In every scene before he has the nightmare about murdering Wendy and Danny, he wears green jackets, shirts, sweaters, all in shades of green. After that nightmare, he switches entirely to red and stays in red for the rest of the film. The colour shift tracks exactly with his psychological descent. Green to red, sanity to violence. It's visible across the whole film if you watch what he's wearing scene by scene. Number 4. When Jack is waiting in the lobby before his interview, he is sitting reading a magazine. Pause on it. It is a copy of Playgirl Playboy's equivalent for readers who prefer male nude models. It's tucked in his hands in plain sight, and most people have never noticed because it reads from a distance as a generic magazine. It only became widely known after the Blu-ray release made freeze framing easy enough to read the cover clearly. Number 5. When Dick Halloran sits Danny down in the hotel kitchen and tells him about The Shining, watch the shot composition.
My grandmother and I could hold conversations without ever opening our mouths. She called it shining.
The camera is set up so that the rack of knives on the wall directly above Danny's head are pointing downward at him. It is not accidental. Kubrick controlled every frame of this film with obsessive precision. The knives above Danny's head are telling you exactly what danger he is in from the moment he arrives at this hotel. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe and give this video a like. It genuinely helps me make more of these. And if you've spotted something in The Shining I haven't mentioned, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Number 6. Danny is wearing an Apollo 11 sweater, the kind with the rocket when he rides his tricycle to room 237 and is attacked. This is one of the most discussed visual details in the film. What makes it undeniably visible on screen is this. Danny is wearing it specifically in the scenes leading up to and including the room 237 sequence. Whatever you read into it, it's right there on his chest. Number 7. The television Danny watches in the family's living quarters is not plugged in. The cable hangs loose from the back of the set, nowhere near a socket. This is visible on screen if you pause on the wide shots of that room. The TV plays regardless. The hotel is showing Danny things, and the unplugged television is one of the quietest signals that what Danny is seeing is not coming from a normal source. Number 8. The caretaker who previously murdered his family is introduced by Ullman as Charles Grady.
My predecessor in this job hired a man named Charles Grady as the winter caretaker.
But when Jack meets the ghost of that same man later in the Gold Room bathroom, he introduces himself as Delbert Grady.
What do they call you around here, Jeevesy?
Grady, sir. Delbert Grady.
Jack even points this out directly. He says,
I saw your picture in the newspapers.
Grady denies it entirely. Both names are used on screen, in dialogue, in the same film. Kubrick's assistant editor Gordon Stainforth acknowledged this was deliberate. The film's facts are designed to not add up neatly. The hotel contains its own contradictions. Number 9. The Grady daughters are described by Ullman as
I think about 8 and 10.
2 different ages, not twins. But the girls who appear to Danny in the hallway are played by real-life identical twins, Lisa and Louise Burns. They are clearly twins, not sisters of different ages. What Danny sees does not match the reality Ullman describes. Whether that means Danny's visions can't be trusted, or that something older and stranger than Charles Grady is appearing to him, the discrepancy is right there in the dialogue and the image visible and audible in the same film. Number 10. The carpet pattern in room 237's hallway changes direction between shots. In the shot facing Danny as he approaches, the hexagonal pattern points toward the door. In the very next shot from behind Danny, the pattern has rotated. It is not a continuity error. The physical space of the hotel is subtly shifting around the characters, and if you pause and compare the 2 shots back to back, it is clearly visible. Number 11. When Wendy finally looks at Jack's manuscript, the novel he has supposedly been writing all winter, every single page reads the same sentence, typed over and over. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. But look more closely. The pages are not identical copies. Some are formatted differently, some have the text in blocks, some in unusual shapes, some centered, some flush left. Each page is unique in layout even though the words are the same. Kubrick had a full-time typist produce every single one of these pages individually. You can see the variation at 0.25x speed as Wendy flips through the stack. Number 12. The hedge maze model in the lobby is used in one of the film's most chilling shots. When Wendy and Danny are playing in the actual maze outside, Kubrick cuts to an overhead shot looking down on them, but it is not the real maze, it is the lobby model. The overhead shot is of the miniature Wendy and Danny inside a model in the hotel's own lobby, and the hotel is watching them. It's a shot that works on 2 levels simultaneously, and at 0.25x speed, the scale of the figures confirms it. Number 13. Throughout the film, Jack is almost never shown sleeping or resting properly. He is most commonly found sitting at his typewriter or propped in a chair in a way that looks less like rest and more like a body left in a position. In the scene where Wendy finds him sitting at the bar in the empty gold room, he is perfectly still in a way that reads differently on a second watch. The hotel is most present in Jack when he is most inert. Number 14. When Danny first encounters the Grady twins in the hallway, there are 3 shots of them. First, standing at the end of the corridor, alive. Second, the same image but with their bodies hacked apart, posed exactly as they were standing, covered in blood. Third, back to standing alive again. The alternation is fast and easy to miss, at normal speed. At 0.25x speed, it is unmistakable. Kubrick is showing you their death and their presence simultaneously, as if time at the Overlook is not linear, but stacked. Number 15. The famous red rum scene.
Red rum. Red rum.
When Danny writes the word on the door in red lipstick, and it only reveals itself as murder when Wendy sees it reflected in the mirror. But go back to earlier in the film. Danny's imaginary friend Tony has been saying the word. You can hear it in Danny's earlier visions. The word was always there in the film before it appears on the door. Danny has been carrying the warning the entire time, and nobody around him could decode it. Number 16. When Jack is in the gold room at the July 4th ball, he is surrounded by partygoers in 1920s dress. All of them are in period-appropriate formal wear. Look at the bartender Lloyd. He is dressed identically in every scene Jack sees him, not just similarly identically. Lloyd's appearance never varies across the film. He is a fixed point, not a ghost with the usual marks of death. At 0.25x speed, you can compare his appearance across his scenes and confirm the consistency. Number 17. The film ends on a slow zoom into a black and white photograph hanging in the hotel corridor. It shows guests at a July 4th ball in 1921, and Jack Torrance is in the front row, smiling directly into the camera. Kubrick was explicit about what this means. He told interviewer Michelle Cement that the photograph suggests the reincarnation of Jack. This isn't a theory. This is Kubrick's own stated intention. The image is visible on screen in the final moments of the film, and it completely reframes every scene that came before it. Number 18. In the scene where Jack is locked in the pantry by Wendy, watch the door from inside. The latch is a simple sliding bolt, the kind you operate from inside, not outside. Wendy locks him in from outside using a latch that would typically only be operated from within. The door's locking mechanism is wrong for how it's being used, and yet later, when Grady's ghost unlocks the door from the other side, there's a perfectly possible reason for it, because the door was never properly locked by the living. The physical logic of that pantry door is worth pausing on. Number 19. Danny has a vision of blood flooding out of the elevator doors in massive waves. The same image appears much later when Wendy is running through the hotel. At normal speed, these look like two separate nightmare sequences. At 0.25x speed, you can see that the second instance, Wendy's version, begins with a shot from inside the elevator looking out before cutting to the corridor view. The perspective shift is subtle, but it places Wendy, for a moment, inside the same space Danny saw in his vision at the start of the film. Number 20. Scatman Crothers plays Dick Halloran, and his kitchen scene with Danny reportedly required 148 takes, confirmed as a Guinness World Record for the most takes of any scene with spoken dialogue. The scene you see in the final film is the last of those attempts. Crothers was said to be brought to tears by the process. When you watch it, you are watching the very last version of a scene shot over 100 times with an elderly man who was on the verge of breaking. That's what is on screen. Number 21. Watch where the snow falls. In the exterior aerial shots of the hotel at the beginning of the film, the grounds are snowbound and the drive is buried. But throughout the film, the view from certain windows shows no snow accumulation at all. The hotel's exterior and interior exist in slightly different weather. The building is not entirely subject to the same physical world as everything around it, and this is visible if you compare the exterior establishing shots to the window views during the indoor scenes. Number 22. The Room 237. Number itself is a deliberate change from Stephen King's novel, where The Room was numbered 217. Kubrick changed it because the Timberline Lodge in Oregon used for the hotel's exterior shots actually had a room 217 and asked Kubrick not to use that number, fearing guests would be too frightened to book it. Kubrick agreed, but the number he chose, 237, is also the code that needs to be entered into the computer in his earlier film Dr. Strangelove to initiate a nuclear launch sequence. Number 23. The Grady sisters' appearance was directly inspired by a real photograph. Kubrick's assistant, Leon Vitali, brought him Diane Arbus's 1967 photograph, identical twins, two dark-haired girls in matching clothes staring straight into the camera with blank, unsettling expressions. The visual match between Arbus's photograph and the Grady girls' hallway appearance is something you can compare side by side. Vitali confirmed this himself. Kubrick had studied under Arbus personally during his time as a photographer for Look magazine, so the connection runs deep. Number 24. In the interview scene, Ullman's employee, Bill Watson, sits in the office during the entire conversation without saying a single word. He is there for the whole scene, never introduced, never acknowledged, never speaking. He is just present. He looks enough like Jack from certain angles that the two of them, seated symmetrically in front of Ullman, create an odd visual doubling. Kubrick doesn't explain why Watson is there or what he does. He simply occupies the frame in silence. It is one of the film's quietest, most unsettling pieces of set, dressing a man who has no reason to be there and no visible reason to leave. Number 25. The final scene of the film is not actually the photograph. After the zoom into the 1921 photo, the screen goes black and a piece of music plays. It is a 1930s big band song called Midnight, the Stars and You by Ray Noble and Al Bowley, performed live at the time of a July 4th ball. It is exactly the kind of music that would have been played at the Overlook in the 1920s. The hotel is playing you out, and if you listen carefully to the lyrics as they fade, they describe a man completely alone with his thoughts. The world fallen away, left with nothing but the night. It is Jack's song. The hotel chose it. And it plays until silence, and that's 25 hidden details from The Shining. And what gets me, having gone through this film frame by frame, is that Kubrick built a film that punishes certainty. Every time you think you understand what's real and what isn't, something in the background quietly contradicts it. The hotel's layout doesn't work, the names don't match, the carpet changes direction. He spent years making a film designed to make you feel wrong, not scared, not shocked, just subtly, persistently wrong. And most of us watched it and thought it was just a horror movie. If this broke your brain, give me a thumbs up and subscribe, it genuinely helps. And if you spotted something I missed, you know where the comments are. I'll see you in the next one.